What if Anakin Skywalker reached his full potential? Our story begins on Obadiah, where Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker just watched as Silman was lifted up into the air and was choked to death by Count Dooku. This would be a major setback for the Jedi, as he was about to reveal some crucial information in regards to the mystery surrounding the Sith and the clone army, although any hopes of learning about that was now lost forever. As the Jedi fought Dooku, Anakin and Obi-Wan would push him back through the hallways and into a balcony, where Dooku nearly kicked Obi-Wan off the building and force-pushed Anakin away. As Dooku sprinted towards Obi-Wan, Obi-Wan would flip over him and kick him in the back, followed by Anakin attempting to disarm Dooku, but to no avail, as Dooku just shot a fury of Force lightning at him, forcing Anakin to his knees as he cried in pain. And out of the corner of Dooku's eyes, he could see that the pikes were starting to close in on him, and so he would force push all of the pikes out of the balcony, sending them flying to their deaths. Sensing that the Count was distracted, Obi-Wan would seize the opportunity and was about to stab Dooku from behind when Dooku ducked under that and used Obi-Wan's momentum against him and cut him across the gut. As he fell to the ground lifeless, Anakin would lower his lightsaber and look in shock at Dooku as he just stood there, eyes as yellow as gold. And then, overcame with rage, Anakin ran out at Dooku but was quickly force pushed into a wall, knocking him out. When Anakin woke up, he was in a place he was not familiar with, but before he had a chance to get up, he was soon confronted by a being of which he was not familiar with, although he for some reason knew who it was at the same time. And that's when it came to him, the Wills. He has heard stories of their existence before as a youngling, but he never imagined them as people who actually existed. As he looked into their faces, he was about to ask what they wanted from him when he suddenly heard a calm and steady voice asking if he was indeed the chosen one. And as if his body and voice was no longer his own, he would simply reply with, "I am if that is my destiny," to which they would reply with, "Then you will bring balance to the Force." And at that very moment, Anakin opened his eyes and saw that Dooku's lightsaber was mere inches away from his face. However, it wasn't moving, and that's when Anakin looked at Dooku and saw that he had a look of horror on his face. And that's when Anakin realized that he was the one holding Dooku's lightsaber with just the Force without even realizing it. As he got up, he would look at Dooku and then at the body of Obi-Wan. But instead of feeling anger towards Dooku, he would feel sadness towards him, and then would look at him and would simply just say, "You chose the wrong path," as he force pushed him away so far that Anakin could not see him with his now heightened awareness. Sensing that his former master was now one with the Force, Anakin would take him back to the temple and would inform the Jedi Council of what had happened there. After the funeral, Anakin found himself not angry at what had happened or wanting revenge, but rather at peace with himself, as he accepted the fact that Obi-Wan was now one with the living Force, something that the younger Anakin would have never come to the conclusion of. After this, he would meet with the Council once again and inform them of how the events played out, although he would leave out the fact that he saw the Wills. After this, Anakin would be sent on a side mission with Rex, where he would help him find and save a clone who they thought was long gone. But in reality, he was just captured by the Separatists and was used for his intelligence. And after saving Echo, Echo would decide to join the Bad Batch. And instead of feeling reluctant to let Echo join them, Anakin instead felt at peace with how things played out and allowed him to leave. After arriving back on Coruscant, and some time later, however, Anakin would be called to meet with Yoda in his personal quarters, which, upon entering, Yoda would ask Skywalker what really happened on Obadiah. And Anakin, not wanting to keep what happened there a secret forever, would confess in Yoda about his visions with the Wills, and how he felt so much more powerful and in control of practically everything. After hearing this, Yoda would tell Skywalker about his experience with the Wills, and how they hold the key to life after death, but only for those who are willing to learn. But before they could continue on their conversation, Anakin would be called to the Chancellor's office, which Yoda did find a little annoying, but he would allow Anakin to leave, but asked him to stop by if he had any other questions. As Anakin entered the office of Palpatine, Anakin suddenly felt a very dark presence all around him, and as he looked around, he could sense the dark side in all of the artifacts that the Chancellor had collected. But none of that even compared to the Chancellor himself. As Anakin walked in, he could sense the evil and dark side pulsing from the old man. And feeling through the Force, Anakin realized that Palpatine was using the Force to cloak the dark side and to hide his yellow eyes. Realizing that the Chancellor was indeed a Sith, Anakin would lunge at Palpatine, lightsaber ignited, and would demand that Palpatine would stand down and surrender. Palpatine would look around in confusion. What on Coruscant was Anakin doing? But after a second, Palpatine saw in Anakin's eyes that the boy had finally found out what his true identity was. But how he was even able to do that was beyond Palpatine. All he knew now was that he needed to be very careful if he wanted to secure Anakin as his apprentice. As he paced around his office, Palpatine would pull on Anakin's heartstrings, saying how the Jedi could have saved his mother, and yet they did nothing, and would say that was the Jedi who lived in a glorious palace and while the people suffered in the galaxy. To which Anakin would push back, saying how the Jedi's primary goal was to help the people, and that was a way of the Sith to hurt others for their own personal gain. And after hearing those words, Palpatine finally had enough and said, "If you do not join me, your dear wife Padme and your unborn child will die." Staring at Anakin with a burning rage, Palpatine would yell at him to choose between ultimate power or death. But Anakin would not be fazed, as he just stared back at the Sith was his piercing blue eyes. Sensing that he would not be able to secure Anakin to his side and that he would not win in a 1v1 fight against the Chosen One, decided to make the risky decision of running away as he jumped out of the window. As he fell, he would quickly activate Order 66 across the entire galaxy. And while he knew it would not be nearly as effective as it could have been, he realized that if he didn't activate it now, he would not be able to later. And Anakin, sensing the change within the clones, would rush back to the temple and would lock it down before any clone had the chance to walk up the stairs. Unfortunately, while the temple might have been safe for the time being, the rest of the Jedi spread out across the galaxy were not, as thousands would die at the hands of the clones, including Plo Koon, Ki-Adi-Mundi, thankfully, Depa Billaba, and many other Jedi Masters. Feeling all the pain and death that had occurred throughout the galaxy, Anakin would run to Yoda's quarters and would tell him everything. But before he could even say the first word, 10 Republic Venators would enter into the planet's atmosphere and would begin an orbital bombardment against the Jedi Temple. However, Anakin would sense this right in the nick of time and would use the Force to suspend the blaster fire for as long as possible. And he would be able to do that for long enough where most of the Jedi were able to escape into the lower levels of the planet. Unfortunately though, there would still be roughly 1,000 Jedi stuck in the temple as it collapsed, killing all of them. But it wouldn't stop there, as Palpatine would automatically send hundreds of thousands of clones to search the entire planet to kill any Jedi there. But that would be very difficult to do so, as the Jedi had multiple safe havens hidden across the planet, and the one they were currently at was hidden deep within the temple, where they would regroup and try to craft a new plan. While this was happening, Palpatine would inform the people that the Jedi had betrayed them and they tried to kill him, but to not worry, as the threat of the Jedi would be dealt with in force. And he also would say that in order to secure the peace of the people, the Republic would be reorganized into the first galactic empire, and that he would become emperor. And shortly following this speech, Palpatine would leave to Mandalore to force his former apprentice to join him once more, as even Palpatine realized that the amount of power that Anakin now possessed was far beyond what he could handle. And while at first Maul would try to run away from his master, Palpatine would not be patient and instead would hold his lightsaber at Maul's throat after a duel and would demand that Maul help him or he would die, to which Maul would reluctantly agree. After this, Palpatine would stage a peace talk between the CIS and the Republic, when in reality he really just needed General Grievous. In following the fake peace talks, Palpatine would secretly dismember all of the battle droids across the galaxy. While all of this conspired, Anakin worked tirelessly to help secretly evacuate the Jedi to safer locations and to try and locate Padme, although that was impossible as all of her communications were turned off. Becoming more desperate, Anakin would make the risky choice to leave their hidden location to find his missing wife. As Anakin flew to his wife's penthouse, Anakin was suddenly filled with a sense of dread, and he somehow knew that Padme wasn't there, but something else was. After racing to the room, Anakin was met with the hologram of his wife being held up in the air by Palpatine, who demanded that Anakin reveal the location of all the surviving Jedi, or else his wife and everyone on Coruscant would die. But before Anakin even had time to react, he was suddenly surrounded by dozens of clones and the former head of the Temple Guard. However, not hesitating, Anakin would quickly defend himself and would make short work of the clones and the Temple Guard, who was no match for the full power of Anakin Skywalker. And while it pained Anakin to kill the clones as they were all members of the 501st, Anakin would inform the hidden Jedi Order about what he had just found out and what Palpatine planned to do. But he would leave out the parts about his wife, and the Jedi Council, who was already developing a plan to escape Coruscant, decided that if they were going to save the rest of the Order from certain death, they would need to reveal themselves and draw the attention of the newly formed Empire. And so the next day, the Jedi Council, led by Anakin and Yoda, would lead the rest of the Order under the command of Kelleran Beck, and would give him the mission to evacuate all remaining Jedi from the planet to the safer location of Tython. Back in the ruins of the Jedi Temple, Palpatine could sense the Jedi approaching him. As he waited, he looked back on the past few decades, from the death of his master at his hands to the start of the Clone Wars till now Order 66 and possibly the death of the Jedi forever. All of his plans were finally coming to fruition. And while there was still a few thousand Jedi left alive, they would be no problem, as they would all be hunted down and defeated. And that even if some of them did survive, none of them would be strong enough to pose a serious threat to him or his empire. However, that would be put to the test when he turned around and saw Anakin, Yoda, and Mace Windu alongside the rest of the surviving Jedi Council. However, instead of being fearful of what might happen, Palpatine looked at them with eagerness, as he suddenly used the Force to collapse the floor around the Jedi, sending all the Jedi except for Anakin crashing down into the lower levels of the temple, where Maul, Grievous, and hundreds of clone troopers waited for them. Watching as the rest of the Jedi fell, Palpatine ignited his lightsaber and gave Anakin one last chance to join him. Anakin would turn on his lightsaber and would watch as Palpatine slowly circled him, as if testing his patience. But no longer the impatient and brash young young man that he once was, Anakin instead would look at Palpatine and would deactivate his lightsaber and would kneel on the ground to meditate, to much of the confusion of Palpatine. But he would use this opportunity to try and cut off Anakin's head, but would miss as Anakin front flipped over him and would unleash his own fury of attacks. Underneath the temple, the Jedi would slowly get back up and try to let their eyes adjust to the darkness, but before they even had a chance to look at one another, they were instantly starting to defend themselves against Maul, Grievous, and the clones. Reacting in a split second, Yoda and Kit Fisto leaped towards Grievous, while Mace Windu and Saesee Tiin would take on Darth Maul, leaving the rest of the Jedi to take on the clones. As they started fighting, General Grievous laughed at the Jedi as he relentlessly pushed the two Jedi Masters back with his enhanced speed and agility, using two of his lightsabers to counter Yoda while the other two fought Fisto. But realizing that would not be enough to kill the Jedi, he would change up his style as he grabbed Kit Fisto and threw him at Yoda, and was about to stab them both while they were both disoriented when Yoda would force push him back into a wall, and Fisto would use the distraction to cut off two of Grievous's hands. And while that was happening, Mace Windu and Saesee Tiin fought Maul. Mace would use Vapod to feed off of Maul's anger to push him back, which would not have been possible without the help of Saesee Tiin, as he provided cover strikes and used all of Maul's weaknesses against him, as he barely managed to clip Maul's arm, making way for Mace Windu to cut Maul's lightsabers in half. Finally realizing that he was outmatched, Maul would demand that the clones fire at the two Jedi. Tired from just fighting Maul, Saesee Tiin would quickly get gunned down as Mace Windu tried to rebound as quickly as possible, deflecting the shots back onto the clones. Seeing an opening, Mace Windu would regroup with the other Jedi survivors and would get there just in time to see Agan Kolar, Coleman Kaj, and Stas Ali fall to the ground as they were ruthlessly shot to death. However, Mace would be able to get there quick enough just in time to save Shaak Ti from the clones. And above all this, while this was happening, Anakin and Palpatine exchanged a fury of blows. Their clash of their lightsabers echoed throughout the ruins. However, it quickly became evident that Palpatine was tiring, while Anakin seemed to only grow stronger with each and every strike. Sensing his advantage, Anakin would deliver a powerful kick to Palpatine's chest, followed by a forceful force push that sent the Sith Lord sprawling. Anakin advanced, ready to deliver the killing blow, when suddenly a surge of force lightning struck him, knocking him to the ground as Count Dooku stepped out from the shadows, his hands crackling with the dark energy. And while Count Dooku poured all of his hate and power into this force lightning, Anakin rose unfazed. The electricity, while coursing through his veins, it left him unscratched, as he just stared at Dooku as he absorbed all of the force lightning, as he unleashed his own barrage of force lightning at Dooku. However, his force lightning, instead of blue, was a pure white, and he directed it at Palpatine. And Palpatine would narrowly dodge the onslaught and hissed at Dooku, commanding him to help him kill Anakin or face dire consequences. Driven by fear, Dooku hurled chunks at the temple at Anakin, attempting to create a distraction for his master, to which Palpatine would seize the opportunity to sneak up behind Anakin for a lethal strike. But Anakin would sense the Dark Lord's true intent and would perform a backflip and spin, slicing through the debris, and would use the momentum to launch himself at Palpatine. Their sabers clashed in a fierce lock as Anakin, with calculated precision, left his left side open, baiting Palpatine, and the Sith Lord would take the bait as he lunged forward, but Anakin would quickly sidestep and thrust his lightsaber into his back, and with a powerful kick, he sent Palpatine tumbling into the chasm where the other Jedi were, leaving only Dooku to face the wrath of the Chosen One. As the corpse of Palpatine fell, all he could see before he died was the true power of Anakin, as the Chosen One finally came to fulfill the prophecy. Looking up, Mace Windu saw the Sith Lord's body plummet and crash to the ground with a sickening thud. However, this brief distraction was costly, as a blaster shot seared his side, weakening but not killing him. Seizing the moment, Maul would lunge at him, his lightsaber poised to his strike, but was violently hurled into a wall by the forceful impact of General Grievous's body, flung by Yoda. Wasting no time, Yoda would engage both enemies, while Kit Fisto swiftly joined the fray. And while Maul deeply hated Grievous for killing his mother, he realized that both of their survivals depended on each other, so he would reluctantly help the cyborg back to his feet and would give him his spare lightsaber, just in time as Mace Windu, Fisto, and Yoda launched a coordinated assault against them. Yoda confronted Grievous head-on, while Mace launched an attack from behind, while Fisto took on Maul. The battle raged fiercely, but while this would have been an easy fight otherwise, the Jedi found themselves quickly being overwhelmed by the relentless attacks of the clone troopers. Sensing that if nothing changed they would all die, Yoda made the fateful decision as he allowed Grievous to strike him across the chest, creating an opening for Mace to deliver a decisive blow. With a swift strike, Mace Windu severed both of General Grievous's legs and then decapitated him. As Mace rushed over to Yoda's side, he would witness the fall of Kit Fisto, as Maul stood over the falling Jedi, bloodlust gleaming from his eye, ready to kill another Jedi. Back to Anakin. Anakin was quickly overpowering Dooku, but while he could have easily his league killed him, Anakin wanted to help him return to the light, and so he would pry at Dooku, reminding him of Qui-Gon and how this isn't what he would have wanted. Dooku, however, didn't want to listen. After all, his death could have been prevented if the Jedi would have listened to him. But seeing how Anakin was fighting, not with the intent to kill or harm him, but rather with the goal of helping him, Dooku realized that maybe he was on the wrong side after all. He had always had doubts about the dark side of the Force, but he has always had the fear of Palpatine to force him to stay in the dark side. But with his master dead, there was nothing holding him back, and so reluctantly he would turn off his lightsaber and would apologize to Anakin for everything he had done, and he would tell Anakin that it was time for him to make things right, as he jumped down to kill the last remaining Sith, and he would do so right in time as Maul was raising his lightsaber to kill Mace Windu, but would be stopped as he was cut in half, only this time vertically. Looking down at the lifeless corpse of Maul, Dooku felt a sense of happiness killing the one who killed his apprentice all those years ago, but feeling like the battle wasn't over yet, he would help Mace Windu and the surviving Jedi to finish off the clones. After finishing off the remaining clones, Mace Windu, Dooku, and Shaak Ti would climb out of the temple just in time to bear witness of the first of 30 ships carrying the Jedi to jump to light speed. Except while this would have been a great sight to see, something felt terribly off. Anakin sensed that something terrible was about to happen. In seconds later, dozens of Imperial Star Destroyers jumped out of light speed. It managed to destroy half of the remaining ships and even started an orbital bombardment on the city. And while the Jedi looked up there helplessly, Anakin sensed that this was his moment to save the lives of trillions. As Anakin would use his full power and with just the Force alone would cause all of the Star Destroyers to implode on themselves simultaneously, saving trillions of lives. But before anyone can congratulate Anakin, he had already left to make his way to Palpatine's office, where he saw his wife chained up in a cage, beaten but not dead. Next to her was two infants, a boy and a girl. And after getting Padme out of there, Anakin would rush her to the nearest medical facility where they would get her back to full health. And while he was waiting, he would be able to finally spend some quality time with his new children. But as he looked into the eyes of the boy, who he would decide to name Luke, he realized that as long as there was a trace of the Sith, they would always return. And realizing that there was only one way he could end the cycle, he'd make his way to Padme and would say goodbye to her, realizing what he needed to do. And while Padme may not have been fully conscious, she understood what Anakin was going to do and begged him not to do it. But not even she could deny that this was Anakin's destiny. And so Anakin would kiss her and the children goodbye, and with a tear in his eye, he would make his way to the Jedi Temple, as there was still one last loose end he had to tie up. Making his way down the destroyed temple steps into the very bottom of the temple, there he saw it. A Sith shrine that had been letting the dark side bleed out for over the past 1,000 years. Anakin sensed the dark side pulsing and emanating through it, and so he would climb to the very top of it and would enter a meditation-like state where he would communicate with the wheels one last time and allowed himself to become one with the Force. And unleashing all of his power, he would cleanse the galaxy of the dark side forever, destroying every dark side artifact and cleansing everything else. Finally fulfilling the prophecy by destroying the Sith for good alongside the dark side and by bringing balance to the Force forever. And that is What If Anakin Skywalker reached his full potential. I really hope you enjoyed today's What If. If you did, it would mean so much to me if you could like and subscribe, as I poured a ton of effort into making this video. Now, time to answer some questions. The first one that might come to mind is, why did Maul join Palpatine? In short, I feel like that if Palpatine knew that Anakin wasn't going to join him, then he would have done everything and anything in his power to kill him. And so Maul would join him because A, if he didn't join Palpatine, he would have died, and B, he realized that Anakin would have killed Palpatine and he would have been next. Next question is, where is Ahsoka in this? In the Clone Wars Season 7, we know that she and Bo-Katan lead the assaults on Mandalore to capture Maul, but in this scenario, Maul already left, therefore Ahsoka had no reason to contact the Jedi. And in case you're wondering, yes, she did survive Order 66. And finally, why did Anakin sacrifice himself in the end? The reason I did this was because, to me, Anakin had fulfilled the prophecy and destroyed the Sith and brought balance to the Force. And because of that, he had finally found peace with himself and allowed himself to become one with the Force. And I feel like this would not have happened if he knew that there was still darkness within the galaxy. I hope that clears some things up in regards to the what if, and in regards to my next what if, it will not be coming out anytime soon, as I will be very busy with my life outside of YouTube. And so if you want me to make another what if, let me know in the comments. Just know it will take me a very long time. But anyway, like I said before, make sure to like and subscribe and comment what if you would like to see next. And with that, my fellow Star Wars nerds, may the Force be with you.